Welcome everyone back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. If you are new around here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Can't thank you enough for the support. And we're here today previewing Carlton versus North Melbourne Sunday, 4:40 at the dreaded Marvel Stadium. The Blues go in off 2 losses, but clinging on to second spot versus second from bottom North Melbourne, who they coming off the back of a big loss to Sydney. Did get a win against Gold Coast, but 3 losses before that. Carlton 3 wins before their 2 losses. Records of 11-6 for the Blues versus 2-15 for the Roos. And this game here is a particular real interesting fixture for both parties. Obviously, a lot of questions asked about the Blues. They look a bit disjointed in the middle of the park. And definitely pressure-wise, they've been a little bit off the boil over the last couple of weeks. North Melbourne, they have shown signs and they are definitely a lot better. Apart from the blowout against Sydney, which I think everyone is susceptible to, they've kept all their games tight and they've really improved in some really key avenues of the game. And probably one of the most improved sides pre to post bye, I would say it's fair to say. They've really found a little bit of synergy. They're really industrious. And definitely, even though they're 17th, they're not a side that you look at and go, okay, we'll batter these guys, because they're a side like all sides that we keep talking about. You have to have an element of respect when you play them. This is a really interesting fixture for the Blues because the metrics in which North Melbourne have improved are definitely the metrics in which we've seen in the last 4 or 5 weeks from the Blues have slightly curtailed. So it's probably the greatest opportunity for the Blues to really execute the learnings that they've had, particularly in the last 2 weeks. But to counter that, it's an excellent opportunity for North Melbourne to play a side probably a little bit vulnerable around them areas as well and really maybe snatch one. This is a really intriguing battle that, for me, the Blues have to win to cement their top 4 spots and show their proof. But one that North Melbourne want to win because this really puts them in the window coming up into a hectic trade and draft period. It's one that's really interesting for mine and one that I'm really excited about getting into it. So let's get into the numbers and we look at the scoring breakdown, and this is an area really that the Blues we've talked about. 4 Carlton are the best, one of the best sides in the league, 4th versus 16th. It's a real interesting little battle here because this is where North are actually struggling at the moment. And this is an area that I reckon that they'll look to address in the off-season. Very interesting that LDU is linked with a place elsewhere because he is integral to this part of the system. But the Blues will look at this here and go, this is an area, particularly the next stat. Carlton, the worst defending side in the league from stoppages, playing the second worst side in North Melbourne. Carlton's differential, obviously a little bit better because they do score heavy, but it's still an area of concern. And we've covered that at length on videos on this channel in the last week. Obviously, you've got 17th, the second worst North Melbourne. So this is an area here that whatever you think you need to do to fix it for the Blues, you do it here. Because this is your best opportunity to get a little bit creative against a side that traditionally struggles here. So we've talked about it at length, but this is where I really want to see Hewitt, Kennedy and Cripps be used a lot there to win the ball, and Sherratt and Walsh be used more from an out wide position to get their hands on it and be the point of difference. This is an area here for the Blues that when everyone talks about Tristan Xerri, even though he is dominant, it doesn't translate into stoppage scores and it doesn't help defend it. So this is where the Blues look at this game and go, right, we've got Port, we've got Pies coming up. We have to be good around this area. This is our last chance in the furnace of the battle to be good from it. So this is a really interesting avenue from here. And this is something that the Blues have got to focus on. Got to focus on, because we've talked about it the last couple of weeks. This is an area of concern against. This is the area here where you go, right, this side isn't crash hot at doing it. So I'm not expecting anything creative. I'm looking at here what you know. They should have learned enough with the data. It's abundantly clear what our best stoppage side looks and our setup. Ruthlessly execute it here. Ruthlessly execute it here. The turnover game is something that North have improved incredibly over the last 5 weeks, polling in at 6th at scores against. Still an issue, as it always is, with their midfield. and their backmen that they're playing, but the turnover is poor defensively. Carlton ranking number 1 and 2nd for turnover defence and number 1 for scores, being the best differential side. This is the huge positive. And this time last year when Carlton, this is why I'm excited and I want you guys and girls to be excited. This time last year, we had one of these stats. The stoppage one looked like this, and the rest looked higgledy-piggledy, a bit like the stoppage. It was good in one area and poor another. This is a really exciting stat because we're now into the real nuts and bolts of flag winning. This here is an area here where the Blues have, again, a great opportunity, right? You are playing a side that is incredibly good from turnover and has really improved, right? The big concern at the moment is Carlton, when they're good at stoppage, they're bad at turnover defence. That hasn't traditionally been true over the first 10 rounds, but it seems to be something that Voss is tinkering with, trying to get that happy medium. This is it, because you're going to load test the system in turnover defence. We know that the personnel we have, naturally it's a good turnover side, and that's why we were disappointed last year with these stats. This is a real big one here for the Blues, because this is really saying you've got to get that stoppage game going. You've got to get it going, because they are going to come at you. They like slingshotting off the back. But the key fundamentals here for Carlton to win and have some, I wouldn't say control, but definitely have some nuance, is getting some stoppage defence going to make it hard for them to counter punch out the back of that. A big strength of North Melbourne, if you watch it, their ability when you win the stoppage to turn that over and then it become a turnover score. That's a real big thing. The way that Clarko's got these boys working out the back of the stoppage is exemplary. So this is a real telling little stat here, that the Blues will feel confident from here and will feel like, okay, we can handle their turnover game. We're strong at this. We can score on turnover as well. You are going to have a lot of the ball here, so this stat probably won't be as strong for the Blues as they expect it, hence their flux, but this will be big. And then you look at the defensive half. The Carlton, the best side and the third best side at defending scores from defensive half. Again, this is an area of struggle for North Melbourne. They get a lot of midfield turnovers. The back half is a little bit of an issue. So once you break that wall, and they do incidentally like this stoppage, which is what warps their stats, the Blues, the number 1 differential side versus the second worst. The Blues have got to look at this, that when they've maybe got to look at where they put the pressure. And this week, we've seen, the last couple of weeks, we've seen Carlton's pressure be enacted very late. This is really telling you, get that pressure early, get it in the forward of the mid-half, and then sit off a bit. I think that's where the Carlton have kind of lost a trick, where they either push the lines up too far, or they push the lines and drop them very deep. Try and take a trick out of Sydney and Collingwood last year, where they had heavy forward pressure and mid pressure, and then they kind of left a gap. So they wanted you to kick long and come onto them in the right areas. This is going to be a real key component for the Blues here, of really trying to get that happy synergy. And this is one here where it's a real load test. You've got to play risk-reward, because if you get it wrong, you could lose this game. But this is the time you do it, because all the data is saying if you play as you've been playing, you're winning this game. You're winning this game. And it's a real tricky game, and I like that. Forward half, Carlton are the 4th, and this is where they're very good. Their pressure around the ball in the forward half does excite me. You can see here the 6th best defence. So this is really interesting. When it comes into their 50, their frantic ability to turn it over has been really strong, right? And it's hard to get them second and third efforts. The Blues here ranking really high, but this is where they've come. That ground ball in the back half, and there is a stat that explains where Carlton have really struggled in that coming up. But you're looking at the 4th best side versus the 6th. This is pretty even, Stevens. This is where both sides are going to want to try and get repeat inside 50 entries. This is where the Blues have got to be smart, because this is a big area we have covered in the last 2 weeks. That forward mid-pressure has been diabolical at times. It's nowhere near the levels to win football matches against the best sides, let alone the worst sides in this metric. You are playing a side that you can beat around the ground, and it's very important that Carlton don't fall into the trap last week. Really important Carlton don't fall into the trap, as we did last week, with Buku Karmis and Rory Robbins. See that their backline is slightly frail and just bomb it in. This is where the Blues have got to look really sharp and go, right, what we're going to do is we're going to drive that ball in. We're going to get that overlap run. We're going to outnumber them, and we're going to be at the fault of the ball to pressure them. If they're not, and they start thinking, okay, cool, we can win this because we've got the areas and we just start playing to our strengths without an appreciation of what the opposition can do. This is where forward pressure is king. And you look in the centre bounce, very evenly matched, which is a big surprise with Carlton's personnel, particularly being so poor recently from defence. There's two areas here that worry me here with this, and this is why we've talked heavily about the stoppage and clearance makeup of our team, our setup and the personnel there, is 666 Carlton need to be ranking 4. You've got two of the best one-on-one forwards in the league. You've got a handful and the best one-on-one defender in the league. You are ranked the best side by a long way one-on-one. 666 means when the ball comes in, you should be eating that up all day long. And the Blues aren't. Because the Blues are now trying to be way too defensive from there and allowing teams to run on. Where at the start of the year, the Blues were incredibly good at making you kick from there, which plays to our strength. This is an area here where you ruthlessly execute this. This needs to be a 12-point swing to the Blues at the end of the game. If they do that, they win comfortably, but we learn a lot about the boys. We don't want that breaking even. No 50-50 here. The pressure acts, the Blues, the number one pressure act side versus second bottom. And this is really interesting. They play a very zonal pressure-based system and they enact it in certain areas. It's forward and centre, and then it's kind of a little bit higgledy-piggledy just back half of the ground. This is where the Blues need quick ball movement. Quick ball movement in the back half of the ground negates that forward pressure, and it also gets Carlton in one-on-ones and one-outs all over the ground. Carlton are the second most pressured side. Now, we keep talking about this. This is part of being a good side. You're going to be pressured. It's also part of overusing the pill. And the last couple of weeks, the Blues have looked really reluctant to take the game on. And this is an area that we've just discussed, their forward pressure. They will know. Clarkson will know right now, pressure some of these boys that will overuse the pill. And that is an area that the Blues have got to be ruthless here. They've got to know he's going to come. They know he's going to become. Now, they're not a strong side at pressure, but they can do it. Don't be deceived by that, because that pressure is corely made up in the areas and the battlegrounds Carlton struggle with. That they're not going to chase you for no reason. They're looking at areas to defend, and they defend zonal's very system, hence the tight margins of games. They don't waste energy when they don't need to. And this is where the Blues have got to be brave and be bold to get into them areas and be brave. Carlton, the fourth best tackling side in the league versus the 10th. But again, the second most tackle. Overuse of the football. Too many sideways handballs, too many backwards handballs, too many panicked handballs. The Blues have got to sit to their task and be chaotic with their ball movement and be very brave. The overlap run the last 2 weeks has again been very, very poor, which has been our strength for much of the season. The Blues here have only one option. Go and overlap. If you pay this side, and this might sound counterintuitive, but please don't take my words the wrong way. They've got to show no respect in their ball movement. They have to look and say, we are better than this side. They start paying too much respect to it, which they've done very early against GWS. They did it incredibly early against the Dogs, almost the first bounce. You are inviting that pressure. The Blues have got to find a way to attack that pressure, and we can't control it. At the moment, Wazze has looked for this control. We're not a control side. The way that we get it is we fight fire with fire, and we maybe die by our sword sometimes. That's what the Blues have got to do. They've got to go back to that raw basics. And the tackle inside 50s, albeit the pressure's been good, this number has gone from top 5 to plummeting. This is Milli Vanilli. A start at the moment. We lip-synced once. Career's fucking over. The Blues have got to go back to being a bit more out and John here, sustaining a career for 4 decades. That's what we got to look at. Don't take the short-term sugar hit, right? Don't get too creative. I'm not too sure why we've moved our pressure numbers a bit further behind the ball. I think it's mental against great sides, and it's even more mental against this side because this is their key fundamental. You can see something about North. They've worked on the turnover game first. Other teams work otherwise. They've looked at this. If this isn't high, it means Sheasel's getting easy touches. It means he's dictating the play. We've seen it with Bailey Dale. We've seen it with Tom Stewart. The two methodologies and the difference. Carlton took away the short options for Tom Stewart, caused chaos in his game, but he still found the ball. Bailey Dale, they really paid way too much attention to him but then not enough attention to where he goes. And it allowed him to dictate play. This has to be, you get the ball, someone in your face. You get the ball, someone in your face. You beat the first tackle, your options. You've only got to kick long. The Blues have got to look at that. And this is a real key area when Carlton defend against it. The third most tackled side. You see it. It's a metronome effect. You make it a little bit tough from Carlton. They back themselves with their big tumber to win the ball down the line. That's the safe thing. When people complain about the long bomb, it's AFL 101 under pressure. Kick to a 50-50. Hopefully you break because it's safer than taking the game on. Carlton have got to take the game on here. They're good enough. They need to start believing in between the ears they are good enough to beat anyone. And this is an area here that North Melbourne will know. They'll be looking at it and saying, you're not going to take us on. This is a real key battleground for the Blues because they've got to stop them doing it, but they've also got to take the game on. Marks inside 50 rate, as you'd expect, Carlton are the 9th best side. This should be higher, in my opinion, but I'd also like to see it lower because when this is traditionally lower, our pressure around the ball is a lot higher. The last 2 weeks, it has been really noticeable that Carlton are Charlie and Harry or nothing. Has to go back to that areas of pressure. They're pretty good at marking themselves, just a little bit better than the Blues. Against Carlton, have got the 3rd best defence versus the 6th. Look at the makeup. Charlie Comden down the back has been one of the best stories. Aidan Corr is a beast. The Blues obviously have got a great backline as well. Weeties being the best one-on-one defender in the league. The Blues have got to look at this area here and go, we can't just dine out on Charlie and Harry. We've got to look at backing them up. We've got to look at the pressure. And that's what they do as well. Even though they've got good toes, they're putting that pressure on with Eddie Ford and co. They're looking at it. So this is a key battleground here. Don't buy in to your own ability. That is a big thing for the Blues. I want to see them go back to that happiness of bringing the ball to ground and creating the stoppages that they require. Goals inside 50, you're looking at the best side in the league. The Blues, 7th against, which is incidental because everyone talks about our points against. It's why I said it was a warped stat. I tried to put your mind at rest. 4th best goals ratio. They ain't mugs. And that's because of their turnover game. Their turnover game creates one outs, and this is where it's been disjointed for the Blues. So it's a real good time to talk about that. Why turnover is good is it creates one outs and one-on-ones. The Blues have become so stagnant with their overlap run that they do turn over the ball, and the scores have still been pretty healthy from it, but it takes an age to get there. You watch when we're playing well, and you watch North Melbourne's last game, even against Sydney, even though they lost, since they got the ball back, it was go. They were learning the right habits, although they're not quite there yet, and they did get battering. That is a good sign that they're using the habits, that it's becoming a habit for them to move the ball at pace when we get the ball back, when a team is vulnerable. The Blues have become very assured with that, and it's not nice. And that's part makeup, part tactics. And scores per inside 50, the Blues the best side in the league versus the 16th. And this tells a big case. Goals or nothing. They're looking. These goals are coming from deep entries from North, looking to put that pressure on and recycle them. The Blues have got to put that pressure on earlier, make that kick longer, make it shallower. And this is a key battleground because the Blues, again, 6th best defence with scores against. People forget that Carlton concede goals in the most shocking positions versus 11th. This is a key battleground. Again, pressure. And these are the interesting stats I wanted to talk about. Rebound 50, Carlton, the 7th best versus the 11th best. This is a number that's gone down because Blues overusing the football. They're no longer looking for them short options and that easy kick out. They're now looking to hem themselves in and be precise. Carlton have got one of the best defences against, though, in rebound 50. We're one of the hardest sides to get the ball back. North Melbourne, 71.2%. They are 5th, but Carlton are really hard to get it out of 50. The problem is when you do, the scores are quite large from there. And that's where the pressure is. Really important, the Blues. Look at this stat and pay a lot of attention of going back to putting that pressure on at the half-forward line, and then the midfield. But it's taking away that short option. There was way too many kicks over the last 2 weeks that have gone to the pocket with no pressure, which then have caused a man to come up because they've got to stay on the mark and stop the run. And it's killing Carlton. They've got to go back to that bold, industrious approach. And I can't see Fogarty in the midfield anymore. He has to be doing that. And them intercepts and them pickpockets are so important in that forward half of the ground. Intercept marks, this is a stat that has really risen for the Blues. And I want you to notice the rebound 50 defense and the rebound 50 rate, not much difference, right? Do you know what I mean? Not much difference. This has been a big change. Now, we talked about 4 weeks ago Carlton's improvement because we didn't look to intercept. We looked to bring it to ground and then get the ball moving. We've really gone back because we play so deep into being a one-on-one marking side, and that's not healthy. Even though that's our strength, that eventually will lose. If you knock a door hard enough, eventually it will break. Think of the Maori greenstone that's made with sweat and rubbing. Incredibly strong, incredibly hard is greenstone, but over an age of manipulation, it becomes a beautiful carving. It becomes a beautiful sword. Do you know what I mean? It's so important that Carlton look at that because eventually the damn wall will break. They've got to look at spoiling it and turning defence into attack. And recently, they've really looked at defending. And the one-on-one, Carlton the best side against the worst side. This is one stat that always worries me, and I talk about it at length to you guys and girls. When one stat heavily favours the Blues, it's almost like in pre-game, someone said, oh, they're shit at kicking the ball, at defending the ball. So just bomb the fucker in. Just bomb the fucker in all day long. Right? And the problem is they dine out on their laurels and it backfires because then people come in and they take it around and they get it out the back half of the ground. This is really important here that the Blues don't see this stat and go, right, kick it Harry and Charlie all day. It's got to be a true entry inside 50. The fundamentals need to be respected, even though this stat is lopsided, because this stat is lopsided if you respect the fundamentals. So real key pillar of the ground. 20-point plus win. Again, the algorithm's not liking Carlton at the minute. It's really not, because it's seen a big flux in its makeup and its DNA. And it's sensed that should be a cruisy win. But again, don't respect the opposition, respect the process. Impact, react. Don't push what you can't control. The Blues have got to look doing what they do and making North Melbourne react to it. Peace, love and light, everyone. Can't wait to commentate on this one.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad.